they may be kind of blacking out sometimes. So the teenager may have those symptoms, but what happens is that they don't usually tell anybody because they know that everybody else doesn't feel this way, only me alone feeling this way. I don't want to tell anybody because they're going to think I'm weird. And the one thing teenagers don't want is for their peers to think that they are weird. Remember, teenagers like to fit in with their group. So because of that, it takes about 10 years for them to get the right diagnosis and treatment. And you can imagine, between, let's say, age 14 and 24, what is a usual teenager supposed to be doing in those years? So let's say age 14, 15, 16, you're taking your CSEC, you're taking your CAPE, and then you're going to college or vocational school or wherever, and you also may be forming friends that may last you for your whole life, or you may find a partner to whom you will get married. So there's a lot of activities that the normal teenager going into adulthood should be doing at this time. And of course, if they have a mental illness, a mental disorder, they're not telling anybody, nobody detects it, then you can imagine they miss out a lot on life. They miss out a lot of life, and they can't become as productive or successful as we'd want them to be when they are in their 30s, all right? So that is the pity of it. Next one. Okay. So whenever I speak, I always have a diagram of the brain because mental health has gotten a bad rap in that mental disorders like schizophrenia, even depression, have been thought to be due to obeah, due to demons, or due to some other supernatural position, some other supernatural origin, all right? I know the Bible speaks about demons. I'm not an expert on demons, but most of the cases, all the cases that I've seen, we can treat them with medication, right? So don't ask me anything about demons. We probably have to ask Pastor, because I'm not an expert on demons. However, I show you the brain because most of the conditions, all of the conditions we're talking about in terms of mental disorder originate somewhere in the brain. So it comes from somewhere in your body. It doesn't come from outer space. It don't come from obeah. You know, a lot of patients, when they come, you ask them, so what have you done before you came to see me? Somebody said them go and see somebody, or them going to see somebody. That means that them trying to, somebody tell them, say that the child obeah and you have to go get it lifted off, right? So that is why I always put up a diagram of the brain. The other reason why I put up a diagram of the brain is that the fastest time of brain growth is actually between 0 and 5. If you remember a few years ago, we stressed a lot about early childhood education, early childhood development. Well, we know that in adolescence, between maybe the ages of 11 to 13, 11 to 15, the brain has a growth spurt at that time. So you are able, so adolescents have this advantage because their brain is now open to get new skills, to be able to do new things with their bodies, with their minds, to make their life better. So that is another reason for the brain, for my putting up on the brain, because of the growth spurt, which we know occurs in adolescence. Next one. Okay. I can't see that very well, but I can explain it. Okay. So Brother Williams asked me to speak about children and adolescents. You may have thought that I wasn't going to talk about children, but I am going to. I spoke about the family and parenting being very, very important for this child. We also know that if a mother is pregnant and she has major clinical depression during pregnancy, the child is likely to come out with behavior problems because the part of the brain that controls behavior is affected. That is why we are trying very, very hard to have depression screening when our mothers go to antenatal clinic. Because the state of mind of the mother when the mother is pregnant is very, very important. I remember I had this patient. He was very, very aggressive, loved to fight, loved to fight. And during the course of seeing him and seeing his mother, the mother said, "Doc, it's the same way we used to fight, you know, when I was pregnant with him." Right? So she connected the two things. So the antenatal period is very important. Now, the birth period is also important because we know that, for instance, if you don't get enough oxygen to the brain, you're going to get like children with cerebral palsy and all of those things. So that period is very important. Now, after the baby is born, the things that we usually talk about more is what? The nutrition, breastfeeding, the breast is best, right? And immunization, must make sure they get their shots. But from my point of view, there's a third thing that's very important, and it is bonding. The bonding between this child and the caregiver. The caregiver does not have to be a woman. Every child just needs one responsive, caring caregiver. Can be a man. And when I say responsive, the child needs to know in their little mind, they're not even 1 year old yet, that if they cry, somebody will come to them and try to figure out what is happening. If they are wet, somebody will change their diaper. If they are hungry, somebody will give them some food. And maybe if they are sick, somebody will try to look after them. That is how a 1 year old or a 1.5 year old or 2 year old figures out that somebody in this world loves me and I am lovable. Somebody in this world loves me and I am lovable. Now, we have seen a lot of children whose mother gave them away. And although they ended up with loving foster parents or godparents, they always have this thing at the back of their mind. Was something wrong with me? Why my mother couldn't love me? Was something wrong with me? Some of them search out their mothers and try to re-establish the ties. But the mothers, a lot of times the mother don't have any connection really, you know? So it's very disappointing to them, all right? So let me reiterate. Between age 1 and 2, although nutrition is important, breastfeeding, getting immunization is important, but bonding, that is knowing you have a responsive, loving caregiver who will respond to your needs is very important. It's important for this child to figure out in their little brain that I am lovable, I am loved, I am important enough for somebody to feed me or to change my diaper or to attend to me if I am sick or crying. Okay, so that is very important. Okay, so what is this saying? The mental health of our children, so let's say 1 to 2, those are kind of important, right? Going up from 2, you know, we've been told about the terrible 2s. And the terrible 2s is kind of normal stage, because prior to that, this baby felt that he or she was a continuation of mother, a part of mother. Let's say he was breastfeeding, he felt that he was hitched on to the mother. When they reach 2 and they realize they can walk, they're actually not hitched on to mother, and they can actually say no. That is why they say no quite a lot, because they're just learning that they have a little autonomy, all right? So that is why we have the terrible twos where they seem to just be contrary, because they're just learning they're trying to test out their little independence and their little autonomy, and they love to say no, no, no. So we just have to know how to manage them. All right. Now, in terms of mental health, the first thing as a disorder that usually surfaces is what we call separation anxiety disorder. So most children, when the mother takes them to, let's say, daycare or school, or prep school or preschool, the child will cry, right? And that's normal, but after a few days, the crying stops. But there are a certain small group of children who keep on crying. And every day is a fight to get them to go. And while they're there, they are fretting. Is something going to happen to mommy? Is something going to happen to daddy? And they fret the whole day until mommy or daddy come and picks them up, right? So that is kind of the beginning of separation anxiety disorder. And then sometimes this child, as they get older, other anxieties come up. So they don't want to talk to new people. They don't like talking to new people. They don't like standing up here and talking to a crowd. All of these things make them anxious, right? Now, another thing that starts at about age 7 is what we call attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Put up your hand if you have ever heard that term, ADD or ADHD. Okay, good. All right. So remember, these children, they have a very short attention span. They may be hyperactive, so they always, well, sometimes you can see them in church because they're always up and down the aisle, or sometimes they're coming up on the platform, right? And they always kind of saying inappropriate things. Like I remember we had this little boy at Andrews, and somebody was telling a Bible story, and they made an error in the Bible story, and he said, no, that's not how it goes. And he corrected the person who was telling the story, you know. He didn't have any, there was no shyness or anything. He was telling the wrong part of the story, and he wanted to correct him. So, as I said, they have a low attention span, very, very hyperactive. They tend to be impulsive. So they have a thought to do something, and before they can say, is this right or wrong? Am I going to be punished? Am I not going to be punished? Am I going to hurt anybody or not hurt anybody? They do it. So you can imagine they get into a lot of trouble. And sometimes, even though they do not do things, because the teacher or their parents know that they tend to do those things, they get blamed for a lot of stuff. So they may go off with a group of their friends, or we're going to school today. And then let's say one of the friends shoplift, thief something from a shop. But the friend knows how to run away quickly so that they are not caught. And the poor person now with ADHD, not so quick, so they are the ones who are left there, and they're the ones who may be caught by the police. So sometimes it's very unfortunate that they are the ones who really get a lot of the blame because of the condition that they have. The good thing about this is that as you grow older, you become less hyperactive, but sometimes the attention span is a problem. And like I've always said, when I was growing up, if you had, let's say, ADHD, you wouldn't go to college, you wouldn't go to university, you wouldn't take any degrees. You could become like an insurance salesman, travel up and down Jamaica, meet a lot of people, have a lot of fun, and make a lot of money. And it wasn't a big thing. But these days, people want to know if you have 1 degree, if you have 2 degrees, and if you have 3 degrees sometimes, right? So more pressure is being put upon us to pay attention. And the kind of keynote factor that they say about ADHD person is, are you able to pay attention to something that is boring? So let's say you're doing a course, and let's say the class is called Use of English. That was class in my time. You know it is boring, but if you do not pass it, you will not get your degree, right? Most of us, we can grin and bear it and get through the class and pass it. The ADHD person will find it very, very difficult because it is so boring to them and they just can't endure it. They're impulsive, they might leave the class, and then they have to do it the next year and the next year and the next year. So that is kind of how it gets them into trouble. And of course, with their impulsiveness, if a friend comes and says, try this now, try this sweetie. Sweetie having something in it. Try this spliff, man. Spliff have something in it. Try this drink. The drink have alcohol in it. They're not going to think something could be in this drink. My friend tell me to take this drink, and before they can even figure it out, they are drinking it, and then they may have the effects. So that is the thing with ADD. They tend to be very impulsive, so they end up doing wrong things or getting into trouble, although they don't really want to. Now, let me tell you, the treatment for this is behavior management, but it's also medication. I know Adventists don't like to talk about medication. Generally speaking, all of Jamaica don't like to think about medication for a child who has a mental disorder. They feel that, boy, once this child going to get medication, that means him really, really bad, right? So you have to do a lot of convincing for them to accept that the child needs the medication and for them to stay on the medication. So we are well aware of how people feel. We are well aware of the general attitude in the society. So we try to work with the parents. Sometimes we'll have family meetings, and I'm talking about the child guidance clinic. So mommy and daddy might come with a child, but the person who really controls the family is grandmother. So mommy and daddy may stand in front of you and say, yes, yes, yes. But when them go home, grandma say, tablet, medication, no sir. No sir, I'm not going to take that. And that's the end of the argument. So what we have to do, we have to invite grandma to come in and try to talk to the family and to convince everybody that at least give it a trial and see if there is a difference, right? So we have to, that's the hurdle that we know we have to cross. But for the children who are very much affected, they cannot sit still in school to be able to learn. So I remember I had a parent, and she said, Dr. Leiber, if he doesn't take his medication, I might as well not send him to school. I'm wasting my money. So she realized that he needed it to be able to pay attention in school. And she was our school principal, so she was very good at behavior management, but she just realized that behavior management was not enough. Okay, so the child is growing up. As I say, around 7, 6 is when you might see the anxiety disorder coming through, and then the ADHD. Now, what other things can affect this child in terms of their mental health? temperament. You know, some children are just easier to be around. They kind of go with the swing, whereas some are more, you know, like things have to go their way or they're not happy, right? So the person who is kind of stricter and more rigid may find it harder to kind of adapt in life. So sometimes your temperament will affect you, right? As I mentioned about medical conditions when at birth or even afterwards. So let's say, suppose you develop bad epilepsy when you're 2 or 3 and it's not well controlled, then you probably will have to miss school a lot. You won't be able to play with your friends like you want to play with your friends. And then you're going to feel like you're kind of like a neglected child, like you're isolated. So all of these things, although you started off quite normal because of what happened to you, all of these things are kind of making you feel either isolated, depressed, anxious, and that is how some mental disorders may develop. I spoke about adverse childhood experiences and also life stressors. And then the other part that we look at is what genes are you getting from your family? What genes are you getting from your family? So for instance, bipolar disorder, it is very, they call it heritable, meaning that if your parents had it, you have more than a 50% chance that you will get it, all right? So we always ask about family history when we see somebody presenting with bipolar disorder, and usually see the linkage. So you always have to take heritability into account. Next one. All right. Okay, the next one has to do with some perceptions and attitudes about mental health. We haven't next one. So, this is the first question, yes or no, true or false. Mental health disorders are not real, true medical illnesses like heart disease and diabetes. Let me say it again. Okay, great. If a child has a parent who is mentally ill, the child will have mental health issues too. False, it's not necessarily so, right? Infants and toddlers can be diagnosed with mental disorders. Okay, let me just qualify that. You know this thing about being on the spectrum, autism, right? So autism is under mental disorders, what we call neurodevelopmental disorders. So a mother may have a child, you know, he started saying words when he was 1, and he was talking up until 18 months, and then all of a sudden he stopped talking. He's very withdrawn and don't want to play with other children. So usually that is the picture that they come to the clinic with, and it makes you think that they may have autism or be on the spectrum, or the autism spectrum, they call it. And actually, after COVID, a lot of the children who were, let's say, one year old when COVID hit, because they didn't have the interaction that they would normally have at church or with relatives, their speech was delayed. So a lot of them were turning up at the clinic. Let's say they're age 4 or 5 now, and then they're talking at age 4 or 5. So now you have to say, was it the COVID, or did they have something from the beginning? And you can do different tests and all of that to find out, all right? The next one says, mental illness is the result of bad parenting. Okay, good, all right. We know we as parents, we like to blame ourselves for a lot of things, but there are just some things that we don't have control over. We do our best, and we can only ask God to do the rest, right? And remember, our children, they have free will. They have free will, and they may make choices that we are very sad about, but we cannot do any better. We have taught them the best, and if they go there and do their choice, it is not your fault. It's not your fault. All right, next one, please. Okay, stigma. What is stigma? Stigma is, for instance, suppose I say I don't like anybody who wear those kind of floral skirts. So anybody who wear those floral skirts, I'm going to tease that person and get all my friends not to talk to you and to tease you. That is stigma. You look on somebody and maybe they have only one hand. I don't like anybody who have one hand. So my friend's not going to talk to you and we're going to tease you. That's really stigma, right? You look on somebody who may have a mental illness, you don't know anything about them, but they just behave a bit strange. You label them mad, mental, don't come near me. Right? We had a session in a class recently, talking to a group of students, and this young lady kept on poking this little boy. And when we asked her, why are you doing that? Miss, them saying gay. So we said, you know, you're being a bully. Oh, she never think about it like that. Because him gay, him deserve to get poked on. Because they think he's gay, then he deserves to be bullied and bullied and bullied throughout class and after class. So that is stigma. They don't know nothing about the little boy, but they just label him, and because them label him, he's going to get bullied. So that is what happens with mental illness. Once you say, I have a mental illness, or anybody suspect it, sometimes people start to talk behind. You know, say that female elevator don't go up to the top floor. You've heard that before. Or he's missing a screw, you know, and you're very wary of him. You don't want to work with them. You don't want them as friends. And so they are isolated. So stigma is a big thing that we in the ministry have to try to work against, because of stigma, people don't seek help. They don't seek help because they're afraid people are going to whisper about them and say, you know, I saw Mr. James going to the mental health clinic, and then it spread around the district, and that is that. Okay, next one. Elder Williams, how is my time? I know we started a bit late, I'm sorry. Sorry? 5:30, all right. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something about teenagers and why they're a special group, and we have to kind of treat them differently from, of course, the younger ones. So what happens is that the part of the brain that deals with anger, emotion, sexual feelings is overactive in the teenager. Let me say that again. The part of the brain that deals with anger, emotions, aggression, sexual feelings is overactive in the teenager. The part of the brain that says, no, you can't have sex now because you're not married, it's not appropriate, it's not right, and you're going to get pregnant, that's your prefrontal cortex. Or it might say to you, no, don't watch TikTok or watch Netflix because you have a test tomorrow and you need to study for the test. That is your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that kind of makes you do the right things, although the rest of your body might be saying, no, I want to do this, I want to do that. So what happens in the adolescent is that, as I said, the amygdala, or Miss Amy, is hyperactive, is overactive, but the prefrontal cortex, which is like the executive of the body, that thinks, makes strategies, makes plans, and tells you, no, don't do it now. Wait until next week, study for your exam. That part of the brain is not fully developed. Now, I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but I always say, when I go to heaven, this is one question I'm going to ask God. Because it almost seems to me as if he set up these teenagers for danger. You might say I'm being sacrilegious, but they're really in a delicate position in that the part of the brain that is stoking the feelings and the anger and the aggression is so active, and the part of the brain that should be dampening them down and making them control the behavior is not well developed. So that is why we as adults who care about teenagers, we have to act as the prefrontal cortex. We have to act as the prefrontal cortex and guide our adolescents. Now, another thing that you must realize is that adolescents like to take risks. They like to take risks. Nothing is wrong with that. That is how they learn about new things. That's how they express their independence. Now, we as a church, as a caring adult group, our responsibility is to make sure we provide them with constructive risks. Constructive risks. What are constructive risks? Anybody can tell me an example? What do you do in Pathfinder? You go hiking or you go camping? So constructive risks are when the adolescent likes to test their endurance. So can I walk up Blue Mountain in 8 hours, whereas you have to do it in 9 hours? The teenager likes that. Or can I run faster than you? So you're testing their endurance. Get them involved in the Braeton club or leadership role up here. Try to stretch their capabilities. Those are constructive risks, and we have to keep them busy. If we don't keep them busy and in a constructive fashion, they get involved in destructive risks. And what are the destructive risks that our adolescents get involved in? Sorry? Right? Substance abuse, right? Sometimes risky sex, they get involved in sex. Driving car too fast, those kind of things. Sorry? Eh? Yeah, riding without the helmet, right. What? Right, watching things they're not to watch, right, that's a risk, right, they're taking a risk. Now, the other thing about the adolescent too is that where you and I would sit in a car and they're driving the car and you said like, Kanisha, you're driving too fast. And they will say, Mommy, that is not fast. So what we older people see as fast, they don't think it is fast. So in their mind, they want to go faster and faster to get the thrill. So you can see how they get into trouble, right? Because the fast, the speed and all those things, they need more and more excitement to get the thrill out of what they're doing, right? So you can see this can be a very dangerous thing. Okay, please go ahead. All right, so why do we help them? We want them to achieve better in their academics. We don't want them to get involved in using alcohol or ganja or smoking cigarette. And of course, we want to improve their future. That's why we're doing this. And we also want them to, to save their souls and to make sure that they go to heaven when Jesus comes. All right, next one. And these are some of the problems that we have to deal with. Poor concentration. Sometimes, especially with social media, our adolescents stay on the phone till all 12, 1 o'clock, and they're not getting enough sleep. They're not getting enough sleep. So when they go to school, they're tired, they can't concentrate properly. Another day I can come and talk about social media. It has its good, but it also has its bad. Next one. I spoke about the angry or aggressive behaviors. Because of the part of the brain that has to do with that and it's overactive, they tend to get in more angry or aggressive confrontations. Next one. Some of them are very anxious, particularly during the adolescent time, and sometimes the anxiety affects the boys, but they don't talk about it. They just kind of bear it in silence, whereas the girls who may be feeling sad will talk about it. And then what we find is up to puberty, girls and boys have the same level of depression. But once puberty hits, the girls' depression go up into the skies. And the boys' depression seems to, be stable. But what we find is that what the boys start to do at age 12, 13, 14 is they start to drink alcohol or smoke ganja. So that is how they deal with these bad feelings or the feelings they don't understand. Usually substance abuse, whereas the girls get depressed. And of course, sometimes the girls are more ready to talk, they may be more ready to seek help, so they may get the help quicker than the boys. All right, sometimes they are withdrawn. Next one, please. Next one. Okay, so look at this now. This guy is doing a stunt, and his two friends are there, and if it should go wrong, you can imagine what would happen to the two of them. So these are the kind of things that they do, and we just have to be here to guide them and to, as I said, give them constructive risks, talk to them about the future and all that kind of thing so that they won't take destructive risks. Next one. Move on. Oh, okay. So it is now 5:30. No? No? Okay. Five more minutes. All right. Now, the challenge for a lot of parents is that your child becomes a teenager, them start lock up in them room, they start to back chat you, they're not as affectionate, they don't want you to kiss them the way you used to kiss them when they were younger. And you wonder, maybe they stop eating as much, and then you wonder, are they troubled, or is this just typical teenage behavior? Sometimes it is not so easy, right? And that is why sometimes you have to seek help from maybe a counselor, your pastor, a guidance counselor, or a doctor, pediatrician, or come to the child guidance clinic. Because the question is always, Is my child just showing typical teenage blues, or is something really wrong with my child and we need to intervene? So as I said, there is no hard and fast rule. Maybe one rule is that if these changes seem to be going on and seem to be getting worse, then you have more ammunition to say something, something serious is going on. If the changes seem to be up and down, then you probably, can be less troubled, less disturbed. But there's no hard and fast rule. Okay. And this is just basically telling you what are some of the indications. Sometimes our teenagers may change friends. So they start hanging with a different group of friends than what they used to hang with. They are more withdrawn, lock themselves in the room more. They stop eating. You realize they stop sleeping as much as they should. Maybe they're not taking care of their hygiene as well as they should. All right? So all of these things may make you, when they come together and when they last longer than maybe 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they're going into months now, then you start to think that there may be actually something more sinister going on and they're going to need help. Next one. Okay, next one. Let me just say last thing about suicidal risk behavior. All adolescents at some time in their teenage life have the thought of suicide. But it is a transient thought. It may come in their mind, but it will not last long. They will not think about a plan. They will not think about what they're going to use to do it. They're not going to go that far. It's a transient plan, okay? But we are finding these days, we think it may be social media, all of the anxiety and the depression. One, at the simplest thing, the adolescent, or not even adolescent, sometimes even the younger child may say, I'm going to kill myself, right? And then you're wondering, going to kill yourself for that? You know what I mean? So it seems to come more easily to their mind and to their tongue. Part of it may be what the social media as well, in terms of what they may see people doing or saying on TikTok or whatever else. And of course, they may watch and see how people may actually complete it, right? So they have more exposure, and then they may, unfortunately, go and try it out, and then it ends up being fatal, right? The adolescent sometimes is subject to this kind of scenario. So let's say you're a girl, and or a boy, let's say a boy, and your mother say, okay, you can go to the party, but you have to come home by 12 o'clock. If you don't come home by 12 o'clock, I'm going to kill you. Or I'm going to lock, don't bother to come to my house if it's 12. If it's after 12. So the boy's at the party and he's having a good time, dancing with the girl he likes, and then all of a sudden realize it's 1 o'clock. So 12 o'clock gone, he remembers all the things his mother ever said to him. I'm going to kill you, no matter come back into my house, what I'm going to do to you if you come home late. So sometimes when these things happen, that is when the adolescent may think, boy, it's better for me to do something drastic than go face my mother, all right? So sometimes that is when they may actually do what I call an impulsive suicidal action. Or let's say a boy steal out the father's car and he planned to bring it back half an hour gone and the car crash. And him just don't know how I'm going to talk to him father and tell him father what he was doing with the car and why him drive out the car. And sometimes the teenager might say they feel they have no way out but to hurt themselves, all right? So, as I said, there's that impulsivity within them that may cause them to try to hurt themselves, right? So, part of preventing that, of course, is making them, yes, you have rules, but I guess making the threats about killing them and all of that, maybe going overboard, and I guess having a relationship with them so that they can talk with you, even though they may have transgressed the rules, not done what you want them to do, but they are sorry, and you can talk it out, and they'll promise you punish them, and then hopefully they won't do that another time. All right? Okay, let me just tell you what is available in terms of resources. The Children's Advocate has a helpline called 1-888-888-SAFE, S-A-F-E, then Safe Spot, but of course the T is silent. So 888-SAFE Spot, and I think you can also WhatsApp it, you can call it, and text it as well. So any child who's having any significant problem, wants somebody to talk to, you can call that line, and it is free. Because Flo or Digicel, have given us these toll-free lines. The ministry has something called You Matter chat line, which only accepts text. We know sometimes our adolescents don't like to talk on the phone, they prefer to text. So some of our adolescents prefer to use the You Matter chat line or text line. The ministry also has a line called Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Helpline. 888 New Life, 888 New Life, okay? And again, that is another resource that you can reach out to if you're feeling in distress, you feel like you're at the end of your tether, you don't know what to do, all right? So we have made these resources available for anybody, adolescent, adult, child who is in distress, who may be thinking of doing something drastic and just need somebody to talk to. And you know the other lines like 211 for child abuse and National Council on Drug Abuse, they also have a helpline that you can call in the daytime. So a lot of these agencies have helplines that you can call for help, all right? Seeking help, as I say, usually start your parents or maybe an aunt that you are, or somebody in the family that you trust, because sometimes the children don't want to talk to their parents, but there's another adult who they trust and who is responsible. They can talk to them. The next level would be, let's say, a pastor or counselor in the church. You have some churches who have counseling centers. You have some NGOs, non-government organizations, who have like outreach counseling centers again for adolescents who may be in trouble. You also have the doctor, your pediatrician or the doctor, who should be able to figure out, well, is this a typical teen or is this a troubled teen? And if he or she is not sure, he can send you on to a psychologist or the child guidance clinic, right? So we have a number of persons from which you can get help. So help is available. Mental health disorders affect all of us. Some of us, it's short-lived. Like if you're anxious about an exam, Once the exam is passed, the anxiety goes. For some of us, it's more long-lasting, and we need more help, psychotherapy, talking, and we also may need medication. Mental health problems are nothing to be ashamed of. Just like if you had asthma, diabetes, hypertension, you would not be ashamed of it. It's just a fact of life. Mental illnesses are like physical illnesses, and they need treatment. So please do not let stigma prevent you from seeking help. And I will just close that with the fact that a close relationship with Jesus Christ is a protective factor, because when you feel that you're totally alone in the world, at least there's one person that you can talk to, one person who is looking out for you. And that is why we foster the relationship with Jesus and with God and all the different things, studying the Bible and all of that, because it gives you that confidence that you are not alone in the world. A lot of teenagers feel that they're alone in the world, and they just need to know that they are loved by at least one person, Jesus Christ. Amen. And that's it.
Let me thank Dr. Lima for her presentation this afternoon. I'm going to invite persons who may have questions to just come right here. But Dr. Lima, let me invite you to have a drink of water. You've been talking quite a bit. And as you do so, you have taken us through the developmental stages of our children. Now, I have a question for you. So I have seen the child going through the terrible twos and the prep school or primary school years when teachers send note come home about the child. I have seen the child through high school, and I'm trying to put together the concerns or the concerns about development. As a parent, how do I make that distinction now between those developmental changes and possible mental health situations? Any questions?
I tried to deal with that.
No.
First of all, as I said, there's no magic bullet. So I can't say if they're doing this, it definitely means that, right? Sometimes it's the same. The thing about it is that when teenagers change their behaviors, they tend to become more withdrawn. They tend to sometimes sleep less or sleep more. Sometimes they eat less or eat more. So sometimes you don't know if this is a typical behavior or are they troubled. If the behavior seems to be going on for a prolonged period of time, then that is one danger signal. Sometimes if they change, if you see a change of friends, then that may be a danger signal too. If they start to par with a completely different group that you don't even know of, right? And if their academics start going down, that can be a danger signal. And if you suspect that they may be using substances or drinking alcohol, that can also be a danger signal.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Come brother near, they want to catch you in the camera as well, I am told. So come right here for me.
Yes, good afternoon. I was well blessed by your presentation, and I learned a lot. But one question definitely I want to ask. And I'm going to give you my idea and see if it is right. If a child, because of some misbehavior and so forth, told me that he or she is going to kill himself or herself, I know some of these children do things just to hurt the parents because they are not acting the right way. But I always said, I would say to that child, if that child said that to me, say, I'm going to dig the grave right now. I don't know if it's it right, because when I say that, that child going to look into himself and say, well, boy, that not going to hurt him at no time. So nobody try that with me because I'm ready to start dig the grave. Is it right or wrong?
Did he say, Brother Near, did Brother Near say that he was ready to dig the grave?
I cannot stand up here and say that is right. No. I know a lot of parents do it. I cannot stand up here and say that is right.
Thank you, Doc, for your presentation. To what extent, though, do nutritional factors factor in the rapid onslaught of mental illness among the young? Also, we've noticed that the quality of food, when we were young, we had better food. Now the food includes a lot of neurotoxins. And I noticed that also Dr. Neil Nedley's work identified deficiencies in magnesium and B9, which is folates, as leading cause of mental illness. Have we noticed that depending on the nutrition of the child, that could actually be a factor? Also, environment. If a child is exposed to mold, to what extent could that also trigger neurological problems, right? And also, third one, I know this is a loaded one, social media.
We can have a whole discussion.
Yes.
We can't, yeah.
The rapid scene of reference change, according to the Pediatric Association of America, is one factor. So our parents need to limit the time, right? Because that is actually causing the degradation in the mental state of the children. I don't think parents have taken that serious enough. But the nutrition and the environmental factors, to what extent do we see those in Jamaica affecting our young and their mental state?
In terms of nutrition in Jamaica, we haven't actually done studies in Jamaica, but like in the US, they certainly say like the excessive use of like too much junk food can contribute to like depression and mood disorder. So they definitely see an association with that. Some people also feel that meat eating is associated with aggressiveness. So there's that involved. Neurotoxins, folate, where folate has been implicated is really with the pregnant mother. And if her folate is low, sometimes the baby is born with a spinal problem, right? But I mean, any kind of deficiency could cause a change in your mood, a change in how you can concentrate or think. So sometimes if you don't really see an obvious cause, you probably just, do a test, a panel of tests, so that you can figure it out. And social media, as I say, that would take another whole discussion.
All right, so we have...
And the mold, yeah.
I'm sorry, Doc, we have about three more questions to go.
Doc, thank you very much. Can you elaborate on cuttings? So like when juveniles, they're depressed, they tend to cut themselves and hide it. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Okay. So when a child or a teenager is going through a lot of inner pain, so we always say with mental health, if I fell off this stage and broke my leg, everybody would come to help me. If I'm wearing a cast, they would say, what happened to you, Dr. Libo? Da-da-da, right? Because it's obvious. But if I should get some terrible news and get depressed, nobody would know. So that pain is all inside. So where our children are having a lot of inner pain and they don't have good coping skills, or they can't let it out, they can't talk to anybody, or maybe they can't go and play some music, write in a journal, maybe go and do some exercise to get the feeling off, that is when they decide they're going to cut themselves, because in their mind, it's a way of making the inner pain external, right? So I'm feeling a lot of pain in here. You don't know, you don't know, you don't know, but I know I have a lot of pain. How am I going to let it out? I'm going to cut myself. And when they get the cut, the anxiety seems to subside. And of course, sometimes they hide it because they know that people generally don't like it. I mean, it's not something we like to see. So they hide it. So what we have to do really is, one, get at the cause of why they're having that inner pain. Are they being sexually abused and they can't tell anybody? Things like that. And then, once we deal with that, we have to give them alternatives. So if you feel, well, you're going to take away everything that they would normally use. You understand? Or they may need to have, I had a patient, so she had to have a friend walk with her all the time because she would take up any piece of glass off the ground and cut herself, right? So sometimes you have to take away whatever implements are there or get on what they call an accountability partner to help you. And then you as I say, give them different coping skills when the pain rises within them.
Thank you so much for being so practical and plain in your explanation. You spoke about stigma, and you also spoke about bullying. We are thinking that mental health is not contagious, right? How would you encourage or discourage your child in staying away from or not staying away from a person that, or a child that is mentally challenged, well, depending on the spectrum? So if another child is so mentally challenged that he or she is hurting him or herself or is destructive, but this child also needs companionship of his own age group, would you encourage your child to socialize with that child? And what do you think would have been best in the situation?
Well, the way you ask the question, I can't answer yes, because you cannot put your child, and none of us can put ourselves in harm's way. If we know this person is going to hurt us, we're not going to put ourselves out there, right? What I would say is that as a parent, maybe in the child, you talk to the teacher or the parent of the child. Maybe the child needs more treatment, more controls, or the teacher needs to put in more management in the classroom. But nobody wants to be hurt. Nobody wants their children to be hurt. So it's basically trying to establish things. As I say, either the child needs more treatment or more control, or the teacher needs to put some more controls in place. Sometimes it is figuring out, does the child have an outburst when they are tired, when they are hungry, things like that, what they call the triggers. Sometimes it entails all of that to try to set up what they call like a behavior program for this child. All right?
Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Leiber. I must commend you on your presentation, and what is even more commendable, as a person in the science field, you also link it with biblical teachings. So thank you for that presentation. I have one comment and one question. The first one is that Brother Nairn has made a comment or asked a question which we all laughed at because it was very funny or jovial. Funny, you can't use funny these days, eh? Very jovial. However, oftentimes when teenagers talk that they want to commit suicide, they are really, and oftentimes when you punish them or you don't want them to do what they want to do, is because they want to test whether or not you love them, because they are having the feeling that you don't love them, you don't care for them. And so if you tell them that the grave, you're going to dig the grave, it can likely be that they say, see there, him no love me. Him no really care for me. See them, him ready to bury me. And so we have to be careful of what we say. Anytime any teenager or anybody come to you about suicide, make sure that you big it up and tell them not to do it. And how are you going to tell them? I'm a trained person, and so when somebody come to me to talk about, to say they want to kill themselves, the first question I ask, how long you have this feeling? And they say, from yesterday or from last week or from last month. And then the shocking question, Dr. Leiber, is why didn't you do it before? And it sounds shocking. But what happened is that they are going to tell you, I don't do it because I don't want to hurt my grandmother, I don't want to hurt my friends, I might go to hell, and so on. So you talk about these things with them. If you tell them that, oh, you must commit suicide because of so and so and so, they might say, oh my, here I have so much things going for me, and then I am wicked enough to want to commit suicide. So might as well I kill myself and done. So you get from them why they didn't do it before. Now, Dr. Leiber, there is a relationship between mental health and socialization. And as you rightly said, the men, and I've been always saying it, the men do not express themselves. And why we do not express ourselves? Because society teaches us not to express ourselves from an early age. Oh, you're going like your sister, you chat too much. Oh, no woman talk about them something. So a man say, okay, I will tough it. Anything happen to him, I will tough it out, I will drink it out, I will smoke it out. So my question to you, how can us as a country re-socialize and re-educate our men to let them know that it is okay to discuss the issues and the challenges and the anxieties that they are facing?
Well, thank you for that question. It has come up many times. It will need like a public education campaign for us to be able to achieve that. In fact, at the ministry sometimes we say we have a lot of programs targeting girls, but we don't have the same amount targeting boys. And we think that is one of the problems, because the boys need also the support and the help to develop, right? So it would really mean a kind of, as I say, an island-wide campaign. And you probably would have to do something in schools where we're targeting the boys. I went to a school recently, I guess some schools have it too, like sometimes they have assembly, they call it gender assembly. So on a Wednesday, it's all boys, and on Thursday, it's all girls. So, okay, right. So in that way, then you can talk about these things and bring them up.
Thank you, Dr. Lima. My elder has given me the wrap-up signal, but we have one young person here. One young person. We have another question, but we have a couple of questions otherwise, but we'll have to ask them to hold on until we close Vespers. But let me just squeeze this young person and get your, she says that's a short question.
All right. Hi, doctor. So I'm curious, you mentioned the terrible two, right? And I currently live with two terrible two. And they're always saying no. No. Is there a way you can approach that? I've tried different things. I've sung, danced, acted like I'm crazy sometimes, doing, silly stuff to kind of get them to agree with me. But is there any other approach, especially when it's something dangerous? You tell them, don't go there, don't do that. And they're like, no, and they're stomping their feet. Is there an easier approach than me, having to go out of the way and acting silly?
There's no easy approach. It is maybe giving them a little freedom, but certainly if they're going to harm themselves, you have to stop that. if it is something that they just go and get, might feel pain, but it's not dangerous, sometimes they have to feel the pain. I'm sorry, I don't have any, wonderful advice. All right?
Thank you, Dr. Leiber. We have a couple of more questions, but I'm going to ask them to hold on till just after Vespers. My elder tells me that it's going to be a very short Vesper. I've taken away one thing so far, Doc, and that's the part about the antenatal care. Now, I never know about the depression in the womb and all that kind of things. I'm going to have to keep that in mind the next time around. But let's participate now in Vespers as I thank you and ask you to hold on just to answer a few more questions. Thank you.
As I said earlier, it's very, very, very short. And so may I ask you to stand with me and to Isaiah 40 and verse 31. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. Some persons might be able to recite it. If you can't, please turn your Bibles. Isaiah 40, 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Bow your heads with me. Eternal God and our Heavenly Father, we are indeed thankful to you for granting us the awesome opportunity, Lord, of your word to remind us that as we wait upon you, that you will provide the strength that we need. We thank you for the information that you have provided or sent our way today. We know, Lord, that your word said that you wish that we will prosper, not just spiritually, but in every other way. Because when our minds are right, Lord, we can indeed share your word. We can indeed bring others to you. Bless us now as we continue throughout the remaining portion of this week to serve you in words, in deeds, and in thought, for Christ's sake. Amen. You may be seated. This morning we learned about anxiety, depression, and divine hour. We spoke about dementia, and now we're talking about our young people. So we did a rounded thing for our health day. But we don't want you to leave without reminding you that God is the center of all that happens, good or bad. Meaning, if you go through trials, it's not because God has left you on your own. God has promised that he will never leave nor forsake. And sometimes the trials are lessons. Sometimes they are provided for us so that we can cling to him better. And as the scripture says, we wait. And when we wait on God, he will provide the strength that we need. So as you go throughout the rest of the week, what was said today, may you be your brother's keeper. May you be able to identify the person who is beside you, whether in church, at home, school, or work. Pick something from today that can help you to help someone. And also, if it's you, learn to wait. Wait on God, because he promises that he will never leave nor forsake. He did it for you back then, and he'll do it again and again and again. And now Sister Clark will top it all with a special.
Good evening, everyone. Right now it seems like there's no way out and you're going under. But God's proven time and time again, He'll take care of you, and He'll do it again. He'll do it again. You just take a look at where you are now and where you've been. Well, hasn't He always come through for you? He's the same now as then. You may not know how, you may not know when, but He'll do it again. God knows the things that you're going through, and He knows how you're hurting. You see, He knows just how your heart has been broken into. Well, He's the God of the sun and the stars and the sea, and He is your Father. He'll calm the storms and He'll find a way to fix it for you, and He'll do it again. He'll do it again. You just take a look at where you are now and where you have been. Well, hasn't He always come through for you? He's the same now as then. You may not know how, you may not know when, but He'll do it again. Oh, He's still God, and He will not fail you. Oh, yes, He's still God, and He will not change. Oh, yes, He's still God, and He's fighting for you. Just like Moses, just like Daniel, just like Shadrach, a Meshach, a Abednego will do it again. He'll do it again. You just take a look at where you are now and where you've been. Well, hasn't He always come through for you? He's the same now as then. You may not know how, you may not know when, but He'll do it again. You may not know how, and you may not know when. You may not know how, you may not know when, but He'll do it again. He'll do it again. Thank you, Jesus.
And that is a reminder, please stand, that no matter what happens, God will always be there to do it. Not once, not twice, but He'll do it over and over. Please stand. May the peace of God rest, remain, and abide with us throughout the incoming week. May your love continue to enfold and circle us. And may we be a letter written by your hand for the world to read and to see and to know that we are yours. May we be helpful in our community to someone who needs our help. May we not turn a blind eye onto the needs of others, but may your grace help us to reach out and to be our brother's keeper. Thank you for the Sabbath spent, and may you grant us the Sabbath's blessing as we continue to be your children. Through Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And so we will take the other 1 and 2 questions for those who have, and then you can all go home. Just 2, it won't be long.
It's really just one, Dr. Leiber, so let's go.
Thank you for waiting, Doctor. This question is from an elder. She's not able to walk up here. Her question is, the Word of God says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So she wants to know, where did all of these mental illness come from?
Please tell her for me that Eve ate the apple, and then Adam ate the apple. Sin came into the world, and it has caused all of this. My mother, before she died, she used to be in a lot of pain. And she would say to me, Judith, why do I have so much pain? And I said, Mommy, because Eve ate the apple. And Mommy would say, but Judith, I never ate any apple. And I said, Mommy, we are all suffering for evil and sin in the world.
Okay. My question, you spoke about mothers or pregnant persons having depressions and psychosomatic disorders. What I want to know, because you also mentioned ADHD, is this one disorder that can be passed down to the child from pregnancy?
It's usually from the father's side. It is not as strong as the bipolar one, but it's usually from the father's side. Not so much the mother, but from the father's side.
You mentioned children having been hyperactive and not paying attention deficit disorder. But we have a lot of children around who are very hyperactive and having attention deficit disorder, but they don't have ADHD. So what are some of the other main things that we need to look for with this condition?
Yes, you're quite right. Because one time I visited a school and I was talking to the teacher, and the teacher said, I was talking about ADHD, and the teacher said, but everybody in my class have these symptoms, right? A lot of things can mimic it, right? One, I think social media, because they're used to a fast moving screen, lots of colors, exciting things. So when you come and talk and talk, that is so boring. That is one. Two, some other things like anxiety disorder or PTSD, like when the children see a lot of violence or trauma, they are, it's like they're on trigger. They're hypervigilant, so any little thing will, they can't concentrate for long. They may be thinking about what is happening to mommy or daddy at home, what is going to happen when I go home, so their concentration is not there. Or as I say, they're just easily triggered. Any little thing, the concentration goes, right? And then some children too, well, again from trauma and the violence, they zone out sometimes. And sometimes they don't have control over the zoning out, you know? It's like when they were being abused, the way to cope with the abuse was to zone out, right? So let's say this man is having sex with me, but my mind is not here. I'm only my body. But what happens is that after that stops going on, your mind is still zoning out ever so often, and you can't control it. until you get some treatment. So it would take some amount of sifting. Let me tell you a story, and it won't take long. There is a psychiatrist, a pediatrician. Her name is Nadine Burke Harris. Her father is actually Jamaican. But she went and she did pediatrics, and she said she wanted to go to she's black, right? She wanted to go to an inner city place where she would help people. So she went and set up somewhere in Chicago, and she sent a message to the schools, send me all the children who have any problems. And they sent like a whole class. And she said, no, but they couldn't have ADHD. And then she had a group of people around her, and that's when they did the research and realized that a lot of these children had what they call adverse childhood experiences. Abuse, neglect, somebody in the family with a mental illness, somebody in the family incarcerated, and it was those experiences that were causing them not to be able to concentrate in class and all of that, not ADHD. So you have to take a good history.
Okay, I have somebody who is close to me in my family, and she said that she has ADHD. She has gone onto the internet, she has done some research. Now she's very young. I took her in because there was a time I spoke to her. She told me she wanted to get out of the situation where she was living in, and at one point, when my friends told me, do not do that, do not do this because you are the type of person who is always being kind to people. But I spoke back to her, and she told me that she wanted to commit suicide at one point. So I took her in. We usually have talks and stuff, you know, just to see where she's at. And she went back to the situation. So my question is, should I be concerned about her going back? She is probably about 21.
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, she's 21, she's an adult. She can make her own decisions. She knows you helped her to come out of the situation. For some reason, she has decided to go back in. It may be a bad decision, but you can't do anything about that. What we have found is some people, when they come from very dysfunctional or even abusive situations, it's like they get used to it. And sometimes, no matter how much you take them out, there's something that pulls them back in. So sometimes they need a lot of therapy to realize what is good for them, what is not good for them, what is normal, what is not normal. She's 21. We can only give her advice and tell her that you love her and tell her you're supportive, but you can't do anything else.
And finally, you gave some numbers, but is there somewhere that we can specifically go to get help with somebody with this condition?
Are we talking adult or child?
21.
Okay. Same thing, like a counseling, I would start at a counseling center. Let's say, I know Bethel has a counseling center. I think East Jamaica was trying to get a counseling center. I'm not sure about that. So, or Rise Life, right. One of these counseling centers, a good private doctor. Some of them really know, about mental stuff. Or you go health center, or like the accident and emergency. But that's more if they're, like they took some tablets or stuff. Or privately, you have psychologists and psychiatrists.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leiber. As I see my sister standing on the podium to do another matter. Finally then, to what extent is there collaboration between the ministries of health and education with respect to child health, children health, mental health, particularly as these things are now impacting our schools? We see what's happening out there. We've been blaming some of it on COVID and these kinds of things. But to what extent, as I asked, is there collaboration between the two ministries to deal with these issues? Thank you very much. Oh, principal coming to help you. Okay.
All right. Up to this year, this school year, the Minister of Health and Dr. Leiber was at my school, and they put in what we call a wellness bench. Dr. Leiber, a wellness bench, where students who are having difficulties and problems can come in and go on that bench and sit down and cool out as a safe space. And I am in dialogue. Well, I need to put up the dialogue, but I want to set up a wellness center at my school where the Ministry of Health, psychologists, psychiatrists will come in and have session with those children who we consider bad. And I will say to you that children are not bad, they are just acting out. And so I'm reminding Dr. Leiber that I made that proposal to her and the minister, and we will get that going. And so there's a good collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education and schools, and Dr. Leiber and the minister have been going around to schools to really deal with mental issues with children. And thank you very much.
I don't know how many of you have heard about school mental health literacy. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to break down stigma by teaching mental health almost like a subject, like maths or English or Spanish or social studies, and teaching it in schools so that before the children get too prejudiced in their minds, they will be open to the idea that mental health is just like any other illness. A challenge which we have, I'm sorry right here, is that sometimes the teachers recognize the problem with the student, they refer them to the child guidance clinic, but the parents don't take them, right? So we lose a lot of children because the parents either won't accept, say something wrong with the child, or maybe they can't take off work or so forth. So I think we have to think of another solution where we might have to go to the school itself, because we are losing a proportion of children whose parents may not be interested or may not be able to take them to the clinic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leiber. Let me just invite the members present to just give a round of applause to the sister. As well as, or your husband, or you want them, stand up husband, let them give you a round of applause too. Sister Jenkins, you have something to share with us.
Good evening, everyone. After such a memorable afternoon, I just want to say thank you to the organizers of this program, including the technical team and the members and visitors who participated and be enlightened by the information presented. On behalf of the Health Department and the entire church, I extend a heartfelt thanks to you, Dr. Judith Thomas, for taking time out, who took time out from our busy schedule to be our presenter on mental health in youth. It's just a pity that more youth and adolescents are not here this afternoon. I sincerely hope that this valuable information will help us, including our brothers and sisters, to be mentally stable. Again, I say thanks to everyone, and may we all reach home safely and have a good and a restful night's rest.
Thank you, Sister Jenkins. I see my elder coming forward. So let's tarry just a bit longer as he shares with us some news. Elder.
Pleasant good night, everyone. Also want to, on behalf of the leadership of the church, extend appreciation and thanks to Doc for her informative presentation. And as I said to her, boy, it seemed like she would do another 2 hours. And she said, no, man, I'll come back next time. So that's an open invitation. Just a few important reminders. Tomorrow is Fifth Sunday, and you know what Fifth Sunday means at Braeton. It's family night, and so it's a rest night. And I hope you will get charged to face the new month that is ahead. Also, we want to remind you that come Wednesday, Wednesday will be the start of our 10 days of fasting and prayer. And so you want to bear that in mind. Now, 2 quick things before we leave. We want to detain you for a few more minutes. In this way, shortly the married people general meeting will be upstairs. And so those of us who are married, you know the ropes, we'll be meeting upstairs. But we have been saying to you, you remember some time ago we launched the church-mate insurance plan and the church life. Well, the church life didn't get off ground, so you could, it seemed like a dire death. But Sagicor has always been coming out with new packages, and we would have invited Sister Sharon Coombs, who is the agent and who represents us well so far, and she has a presentation that I would like her to make. So those of you who are interested, and it will be just for a few minutes, another 15 minutes or so, she'll just share with us the new package, and hopefully it will gain the interest. Let me share with you that the plan that we would have launched and is active so far, it's in the 2nd year, is a church mate, 18 to 65. But we have a number of persons who are over that age, which they have a plan that can incorporate those persons. And we need 10 persons to get something off in that age group. So I'm not sure of this new package that she will be sharing with us, but I indeed wish to hear. And so at this time, I invite Sister Sharon Coombs from one of the Sagicor agents to share with us. And we crave your undivided attention.